June 22nd, 1944, Belarus. Operation Bagration. The sun never really rose that morning. It leaked through smoke and dust. A gray light, metallic, the kind that made every wrecked vehicle look like a tombstone. Sergeant Alexei Morozov wiped condensation from his periscope and saw the silhouettes of burned-out T-34s stretching across the wheat fields like dead beetles. 17 tanks in 2 days. The Panthers had been waiting. He was an engineer before the war, Kharkov Tractor Works, turret design section, and he could still quote the stress tolerances of a drive sprocket by memory. But that knowledge hadn't saved anyone here. A low voice crackled over the radio. Sokol 3, report status. Alexei keyed the mic. Sokol 3 operational, advancing to grid 178. His voice was steady, practiced. It had to be. The men behind him measured their pulse by his. Inside the T-34, the air was a stew of oil fumes and damp wool. Corporal Kuznetsov, the gunner, hummed an old marching song while sighting the 76mm cannon. Their driver, Pasha, was 19, born the same year the first prototype T-34 rolled out of Kharkov. He handled the controls like a tractor, jerking through the ruts that carved the Belarusian mud. "Eyes open," Alexei said. "They're hunting us from the tree line, same as yesterday." At 300 yards, the terrain dipped into a shallow hollow. That was where the Panthers always appeared, their hulls low, only the turrets exposed, perfect ambush geometry. Alexei raised his binoculars. Through the haze, he caught a flicker, the sharp black cross on a long barrel. Then the world detonated. The first shell missed by a heartbeat, slamming into the next tank in line. Shards of steel punched through its side plates, spraying molten fragments into the wheat. Flames rose, hungry and orange. "Back! Back!" Alexei shouted. The T-34 lurched into reverse. Another flash, another kill. The German gunners were precise, surgical. When it was over, 4 more Soviet tanks burned. The radio was a symphony of screams and static. Alexei slammed his fist against the turret wall. "They're killing us the same way every time. Same fields, same range." He looked down at the notebook wedged beside his seat. Pages of sketches and calculations, armor angles, traverse speeds, mechanical limits. He'd been tracking every engagement for a week. The pattern was there. He could feel it, like an equation just shy of solution. That evening, back at the forward maintenance yard, the wrecks were hauled in under tarps. Mechanics worked in silence, cutting open hulls still warm from fire. Alexei walked among them, studying impact craters and penetration paths the way a surgeon studies wounds. Lieutenant Sidorov, their platoon commander, lit a cigarette beside him. "You are an engineer, da? What do you see?" "A design flaw, but not ours. The Panthers." Sidorov raised an eyebrow. "You think German tanks have flaws?" "Every machine does." He traced a finger along the entry hole in a burned T-34. "They hit us from 1,200 meters, always from frontal arc. That's discipline, yes, but also limitation. Their turrets traverse slow. The engines overheat under constant load. If we force them to move, really move, they break geometry." Sidorov exhaled smoke through his nose. "Try telling that to Stavka Doctrine. Mass assault at dawn." Alexei looked at the black sky. "Doctrine is killing us faster than the Panthers." June 23rd. Prisoner number 4217. The first Panther they captured wasn't intact, but its crew was. 4 men, soot-stained and terrified, taken after their tank through a track retreating from the woods. Among them was a quiet one with grease under his nails, no officer's swagger. His papers read, Unteroffizier Ernst Keller, 5th Panzer Division Maintenance Detachment.
Alexei found him sitting on an ammunition crate, hands bound, staring at the ruined Panther as if mourning it. "You're an engineer," Alexei said in German. "Mechanic." Keller's eyes flicked up, surprised. "How do you know?" "Because you look at it the way I do, like you want to fix it." For a moment, the war seemed far away. Keller's shoulders eased. He serviced cooling systems, Maybach HL-230 engines, good engines, too complicated for mud. Alexei crouched beside him. "They overheat?" Keller hesitated, then nodded slightly. "If you push too long in low gear, the fan belts snap, the radiators clog. It becomes temperamental." Alexei smiled faintly. "Then maybe we make her angry." Sidorov cut in sharply. "Enough, Morozov. We're not interrogators." "No, we're engineers. He just gave us what we need." That night, Alexei spread his notes across an ammo crate inside the maintenance shed. Diagrams of Panthers and T-34s overlaid with range data and engine specifications. He sketched a triangle, 3 approach lanes converging on one German position, but instead of direct fire, he marked arcs of noise and heat. The plan was insane, beautiful, but insane. He'd used decoy engines to mimic a Soviet column approaching from the south, while his real tanks moved silent from the north. Force the Panthers to pivot, make them idle in the mud until their engines ran hot, fans screaming. Then strike from the flank when their turrets moved like molasses. Pasha leaned over the sketches. "Comrade Sergeant, is this official order?" "It will be, as soon as I survive proposing it." June 24th. Forward HQ, 1st Guards Tank Army. The command tent smelled of diesel and fear. Maps covered the table, marked with red arrows and black crosses. Colonel Zorin listened while Alexei explained the plan, his voice steady, but eyes burning with exhaustion. "You want to use broken tractors as decoys?" Zorin asked. "Yes, sir, with mufflers removed. They'll sound like engines under load. The Panthers will turn toward the noise. When they do, we hit them from the rear with full speed." Zorin tapped ash into a tin cup. "And if you're wrong, then at least we die thinking for ourselves, not following a pamphlet." Silence. Then the colonel gave a tired grin. "All right, engineer. You get 4 T-34s and whatever scrap you need. But if you fail, I'll have to tell headquarters I lost men to a theory." Alexei saluted. "Then I'll make it a successful one." June 25th, 0300 hours. Fog lay heavy over the marsh. Somewhere in that darkness, the Panthers waited, predators in a steel forest. Alexei's column idled behind a hedge, engines whispering. "Decoys ready?" "Da," Pasha said. "Old tractors set for full throttle. They'll burn up in 10 minutes. "Good. 10 minutes is all we need." Through his headset came the low hum of the fake convoy starting to the south. The sound rolled across the fields, deep, rhythmic, unmistakable. In the distance, a flash, a Panther's muzzle brake catching light as it turned its turret towards the noise. "They're taking debate," Kuznetsov whispered. Alexei's pulse quickened. "Driver, forward, slow, no headlights." The T-34 crept through the fog, tracks muffled by wet grass. 800 yards, 600 yards. The silhouette appeared, a hulking shape, engine fans roaring like an animal in pain. Alexei could see the heat shimmer above the exhausts. Keller had been right. They were overheating. "Target rear quarter, range 400, Alexei ordered. Kuznetsov squeezed the trigger. The 76mm cannon thundered. The shell struck low near the engine deck. A burst of fire erupted, brief, then black. "Hit!" Pasha shouted. Another Panther tried to pivot, turret screeching. A second T-34 opened up, shells hammering its flank. Within seconds, the ambush had reversed. The hunters were blind, their precision dissolved in smoke and noise. Alexei switched channels. "All Sokol units, press! Do not stop!" The field became chaos. Diesel smoke, tracer arcs, and the metallic scream of overstrained engines. The decoy tractors burned out, their sacrifice complete. One Panther exploded, turret lifted like a cork. Another tried to retreat and bogged down in the mud. When the shooting finally stopped, dawn was creeping through the fog. 3 Panthers destroyed, 1 abandoned. Soviet losses, 2 tanks damaged, crews alive. Alexei climbed out of the hatch, chest heaving. The battlefield smelled of hot metal and rain. Keller's words echoed in his mind. Too complicated for mud. He looked at the wrecked Panther, steam rising from its shattered hull, and felt neither triumph nor hatred.
June 28, 1944, east of Mogilev. The forest was burning again. Black smoke climbed through the pines like wounded ghosts, and the sky flickered with artillery flashes that never quite faded. The German line had folded 3 times in 48 hours, yet somewhere behind that chaos, the Panthers still hunted. Sergeant Alexei Morozov crouched beside the smoldering husk of a half-track and unfolded his map. The paper was damp. Its edges curled from heat. He'd slept 2 hours in the last 30, long enough only to dream of gears and bearings grinding in endless motion. "Weber," he murmured, circling a ridge with his pencil. "If I were you, I'd anchor here." The German side. Hauptmann Weber. 3 kilometers west, Hauptmann Erich Weber studied the same ridge through his Zeiss field glasses. Rain slicked his uniform. The collar tabs were gray with dust. Once an engineering student in Munich, he'd volunteered for armor service in '41, believing the war would be over by Christmas. Now his company had 5 Panthers left, fuel for barely 2 days. "Fan belts again," reported his mechanic. "Mud in the pulleys." Weber nodded. "We shorten engagements. 2 shots, then relocate. The Soviets have learned our angles." He didn't know how, but he could feel it. The enemy was thinking like him now. And that, he decided, was the most dangerous thing of all. The Soviet plan. At dusk, Alexei briefed his crew. A lantern swayed above the open hatch, painting their faces in gold and shadow. Weber's pattern is geometric. He reuses defiles for cover, rotates positions by bearing rather than distance. If we cross-link his last 3 ambushes, the next lies here, he tapped the map. The Krupin Ridge. Kuznetsov grinned. "We'll catch the cat sleeping?" Not sleeping, but turning. The plan was simple in description, suicidal in practice. Approach under radio silence, lure the Panthers to traverse downhill, and cut their line of withdrawal with smoke and direct fire. Engineering logic disguised as madness. Night fell. Rain thickened into mist. The T-34s crawled through bog and thicket, exhausts muffled, every bolt vibrating like a heartbeat. Alexei felt the machine beneath him as if it were an extension of his own nerves. The hum of the clutch, the rhythm of the pistons, the scent of diesel and sweat. At 0400 hours, lightning flickered behind the clouds, and a faint mechanical growl answered from the ridge. He raised his periscope. There, the angular shadow of a Panther turret, motionless against the horizon. "Sokol 3 to all units. Contact. Hold." The German trap. Weber listened to the forest. The night birds had gone silent.
He rested his gloved hand on the turret ring and whispered to his gunner, "They are here. Wait for muzzle flash before engaging." His headset crackled. Faint engine noises from the north, then the south. 2 columns? Impossible. He frowned. The Soviets were learning deception. "Thermal buildup in engine 2, his radio operator warned. Weber's instincts warred with his logic. "Keep revs steady," he ordered. "If we shut down, they'll hear the change." The duel. When the first Soviet shell screamed overhead, Weber's gunner responded instantly. A Panther roared, recoil thundering through the chassis. The flash illuminated the forest and gave away their position. From the opposite slope, Alexei's T-34s burst from the fog like ghosts, firing on the move. Shells slammed into the ridge, showering sparks and mud. One Panther caught fire, its ammunition cooking off in white arcs. "Push flank, left, left," Alexei shouted. Pasha gunned the engine, treads biting mud. Through the periscope, Alexei saw another Panther pivoting toward them, turret groaning. He calculated. Traverse rate 24 degrees per second. Target bearing 40 degrees. 3 seconds before alignment. "Fire!" Kuznetsov's shell struck the gun mantlet, ricocheting into the turret ring. The Panther lurched but didn't burn. Instead, it fired back. The impact slammed the T-34 sideways. Shrapnel clattered like rain. Pasha yelled, bleeding from his cheek. "She's hit!" Alexei steadied him. "We're fine. Reload." The next shot found the Panther's lower glacis. The explosion threw smoke through its hatches. Figures bailed out, silhouettes stumbling in orange light. Inside Weber's tank, fire licked across the floor plates. He coughed, half blind from fumes. His driver was dead. His gunner screamed for air. He pulled the hatch lever and pushed the man out first, then climbed after him into the rain. The forest roared. Soviet engines advancing, the war devouring everything in motion. Weber crawled to a ditch and turned back just as his Panther's ammunition erupted, turrets sailing into the mist like a comet. For a moment he felt nothing, no anger, no fear, only relief, as if the machine's death had freed him too. Aftermath. At dawn, silence returned. Smoke lay low over the ridgeline. Alexei stood atop the ruined Panther, notebook in hand, sketching again. Armor angles, debris pattern, the elegant geometry of destruction. He heard movement and turned. A figure emerged from the ditch, uniform blackened, hands raised. A German officer, unarmed. Weber. They stared at each other through the morning haze, 2 men more alike than different, soot-streaked faces, engineers' eyes behind soldiers' exhaustion. "You found the weakness," Weber said in halting Russian. "You improved the design," Alexei answered. "Then we are even." Neither reached for a weapon. For once the war paused long enough for understanding to exist. Alexei gestured toward the road east. "Our medics are that way. Go before someone less curious finds you." Weber hesitated, then nodded. "After the war," he said, "I will build bridges, something that endures." Alexei extended his hand. Weber took it. No salute, no victory, just contact, engineer to engineer. Epilogue. 1951, Kharkov tractor plant. The factory hummed with peacetime rhythm, presses pounding, cranes gliding, sparks drifting like fireflies. Alexei Morozov, now chief designer, walked the assembly line where tractors rolled instead of tanks. He paused beside a new transmission prototype stamped with a familiar configuration. Compact gear differentials, inspired by captured Panther schematics. A junior engineer approached. "Comrade Morozov, this design, it looks German." Alexei smiled faintly. "No, it's human." Munich, the same year. A bridge spanned the Isar River, concrete arches gleaming in sunlight. Civil engineer Erich Weber leaned against the railing, watching children play below. His hands were scarred, his hair gray before its time. From his briefcase, he drew a newspaper clipping mailed from Moscow, a photograph of a Kharkov tractor bearing a unique drivetrain. He traced the lines with a fingertip and whispered, "You built yours too, my friend." The wind carried factory smoke eastward, across fields that no longer held wrecks, over bridges that no longer collapsed. The machines of war had turned, at last, into the engines of peace, designed by men who had learned that the sharpest weapon was understanding. End.